Welcome everyone to this week's video, and we have a good one. Today we are going to be talking about a fish from possibly my favorite family of fish. Everybody loves catching these, rod and reel, and just looking at them. This is, oh my god, you'll just have to wait and see. Today we are going to be talking about the pumpkinseed. Or pumpkinseed sunfish. Pumpkinseed, scientific name Lepomis gibbosus. Again, Lepomis gibbosus or gibbosus. I'm not entirely sure which way you would say it. But it is part of the family Centrarchidae, which is the sunfish family. And we've talked about centrarchids on the channel before. We had a Guadalupe bass. I think we had a bluegill as well. You've heard of this family before. This is also what a lot of people in the United States call perch. These are not perch. Please stop calling them perch. They are not a perch. They are sunfish. There you go. Basically, pumpkin seeds are found everywhere in the U.S. They're primarily found in northeastern U.S. They're much rarer in south central or southwestern regions of the U.S. But we've basically spread these all over as a pond stocking fish. So they're kind of wherever you can think. It just may not be very common, especially on the Pacific side of the U.S., much more on the Atlantic side. There is a population, not a population. They are in Europe as well. They are considered an invasive species. According to the map, they stretch from basically Portugal all the way over to the Scandinavian peninsula, but lower. That is actually one of the interesting things about this. This species of sunfish is found farther north than any other species of sunfish. So obviously it is much better able to tolerate those colder waters. They are found in calm lakes, ponds, rivers, pools, basically anywhere that has a lot of vegetation, relatively slow moving water, just kind of think those fishy pools and ponds that you can imagine fish being in. That's where you would find these. They do average about 4 inches, which is about 10 centimeters. However, they can grow up to 11 inches, which that's about 28 centimeters. That's a big one. I wouldn't expect you to find many, if any, of those, because that's monstrous. They average less than a pound in weight, which a pound is 450 grams. The world record was actually caught in New York, and that one weighed 1 pound 8 ounces, so 680 grams, which doesn't seem like a lot, but when you can compare it to the average size, the average size of a full-grown adult being 400 grams, you're talking about one that's almost 75% larger. So that's basically, think of it as a, let's say a person averages 6 feet tall. That'd basically be someone coming up to you that's 10 foot tall. Pretty darn big. As you can tell from the pictures, and like most other sunfish, these are laterally compressed. Basically, think of like a giant disc, which is why one of their common names is called panfish. They look like a pan. This one in particular, pumpkinseed, I don't see it, but people say it got its common name because if you throw it on its side, it looks like a pumpkin seed. I do not see a pumpkin seed in this, but I could be mistaken. So who am I to judge? I don't know. They have this kind of orange, green, yellow, blue in color. That's one reason why I enjoy sunfish so much, is, especially when they're in breeding, you have so many striking coloration on them that it's just really beautiful, in my opinion. As you can tell, they do have these spots down the side and the back sometimes, right here. Usually, and I couldn't find a good picture, you can kind of tell here. If you look here, you can see these bars, and they usually have darker bars down the side, and they're usually much more prevalent. But they're much more difficult to see than in other sunfish. Also, these cheeks have these blue lines. That's pretty indicative of a pumpkinseed. And then they have this orange-red spot on the gill cover with these white margins along the outside. And that is called the opercle flap, because the entire gill cover plate called an operculum, opercle bone. So that's the opercle flap, so a little ear flap. They do have a small terminal mouth, and they this is exactly what my notes say. They eat standard sunfish things. What I mean by that is they eat insects, mosquitoes, worms, fry, which fry are, really baby fish. They just eat anything. They'll even eat snails. And that's how most sunfish are. They'll just kind of eat whatever they feel they can grab. Yes, that's actually, and this is off topic, but that is no joke, one way to catch sunfish in like a city park. I have seen people catch sunfish with French fries, McDonald's French fries. So, and yes, they do fry. These are a very excellent tasting. We'll get into that. So, insects, mosquitoes, worms, fries, anything. They do eat quite a bit of snails, and they'll eat all the way from the top of the water to the bottom water, even like sucking bugs from the surface. But an interesting fact is that pumpkin seeds that live in waters that have larger snails actually have larger mouths and more developed muscles to crack the shells of those. So that kind of shows how adaptable these things can be. Now, as far as their reproduction goes, they are kind of like most other sunfish. They have nests that the males will clean out with their fins, their tails. They'll just make it looks like a bird's nest, honestly. A lot of people have seen these in rivers and on the edges of like ponds, and they'll just be like, it looks like a cleared spot of gravel with dirt all around it. And that's usually a sunfish nest. The males will get that cleaned out, and the females will lay in that nest, whereas the male will then fertilize and then guard the eggs and the young to a certain extent. Now, these are a very, very popular recreation fish. There's a moth in my room. These are a popular recreational fish, especially by younger anglers or people that are taking younger anglers out. So think like grandparents taking out their grandkids, things like that. Because as with sunfish, they're usually relatively easy to catch, and they're extremely good to, they put up a big fight. Really nice. They're very popular to eat as well. That's why we were talking about frying. This is one of the better tasting sunfish out there, which most of them taste pretty good, in my opinion. So, people get them, they'll get them, you get a whole mess of them and then fry them all up. Really good. Now, you also can get these in the aquarium trade, which sunfish aquariums have become more and more popular in recent years. You can find them online for about $12 to $20 in the US, probably more expensive if you're overseas, but you can have there. Now, kind of the interesting fact that we're going to end the video on, it's not really a fact, it's how do you identify these? People usually have a hard time telling sunfish apart. And so the two sunfish that you're going to confuse the pumpkinseed with most often are the bluegill sunfish and the red ear sunfish. Now, so this is a picture of a pumpkinseed versus a bluegill sunfish, and you can see how similar they are. The bluegill is going to have this barring as well, and you can see here that this pumpkinseed has much more prevalent barring here. You can still see the spots, you can still see the red spot. Now, the bluegill is going to not have that red spot right there. Its barring is going to be much more prevalent, and a bluegill will also have a dark spot on the dorsal fin right here. So that's how you kind of tell a pumpkinseed to a bluegill. The issue is when you compare it to a red ear sunfish. So a red ear sunfish is also going to have this red spot, going to have vertical barring that's very light. You can see here. There's another picture you can see there. So telling the difference between a red ear sunfish and a pumpkinseed is much more challenging. And basically, the best way to tell the apart is a red ear sunfish is going to have much more, is going to have a much larger red spot on its ear compared to a pumpkinseed. You can see a pumpkinseed has just like kind of a tiny tip. The red ear is going to be much larger red spot. And then if you look at the fins, let's see if we can get a good picture right here. Here we go. If you look at the fins of a red ear, you can see that it's very long and pointed. And in fact, you can push the fin up, and usually the fin will reach past the edge of the bag, as compared to a pumpkinseed, where it's a little shorter and blunt. So that's the best. It's kind of difficult. You really have to get some practice to tell sunfish apart, but But thank you guys so much again. I really appreciate it, and I hope to see you again. If I don't, please be safe. Have a great day. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. If you do, I'd really appreciate it. I really enjoy those comments. But thank you guys so much again. Take care of yourselves. Take care of your loved ones.